faster to make sure. Waiting for my live stream to appear. Where am I? I don't even see myself live yet. Can you? Yeah, go to the YouTube browser that's on this computer, and see if YouTube says that I'm like streaming. See how there's like a YouTube window open? Weird. I can't see myself yet. Well, if you guys can see me, what's up? But I can't see myself yet.
Let me look.
Oh, here we go.
There you are.
What's up? What's up? I see now.
Yeah.
Can you guys all hear me?
I'm gonna go check the volume.
Oh, and wait, hang on a second. Use the mouse, switch OBS back to full screen camera, because right now it's on zoom mode.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Cara's my assistant today. Can you guys hear me? Yo, yo. If you guys saw the thumbnail, you know today's a very special very special live stream. Thank you so much, Cara. Oh, good. Everyone's saying yes. You can hear me. The audio sounds nice and clear. That's what I like to hear. Welcome, everybody. So as you can see, today is an extra special live stream because we're going to be joined by Grammy-nominated mixing and mastering engineer Luca Pretolesi. And he's going to be joining us at 2:30 via Zoom to answer all your guys' questions. And I'm going to be answering your guys' questions up until that, but if you got a mixing and mastering question that you want the boss man to answer, I highly recommend you save it till 2:30 p.m. Pacific time when he's joining us on the live stream. Hey, Cara says the audio sounds fire. That's what I like to hear. Last time people said I sounded like I was in a space vortex, so that's definitely a huge improvement over last week. That's right, Luca Pretolesi is going to be joining us. Greetings, greetings. I'm so glad you guys can hear me clearly today. After all, this is an audio channel, and we're talking about things that help your audio sound better. That's the theme of today's stream. Greetings from Italy. Well, greetings from Las Vegas. This is actually my new studio in Las Vegas. If you guys haven't followed any of my recent videos, you might not have noticed that I'm not in the same studio I used to be in. We're out here in Las Vegas now. We moved out of Los Angeles to a house and reset up our whole studio. We have 2 studio rooms. We're actually going to be doing a studio tour. But yeah, so coming in hot from the new studio. Reid, on your Vintech audio, what is your red dial? That's the preamp gain. That's actually like if my mic was too loud, I'd be like, hey, Cara, can you turn down that red dial? So that's like the gain of the whole thing. Let's see. Hello from Romania. Antigua in the house. Greetings from India. It's 2:50 in the morning. Well, you're in for a treat. Here in Las Vegas, it's 2:20 p.m. And at 2:30 p.m., Luca Pretolesi is going to be joining us to answering all of your questions about mixing and mastering. Really excited about that. Hello, hello. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen yet, me and Luca actually started a whole online mixing and mastering school called MyMixLab. And every single week we upload a full-length course. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Luca, and it's a course all about mixing and mastering. And this week is the 4th episode of our signature series, Fix My Mix, where we take songs, not just songs, but sessions from subscribers of MyMixLab, and we actually mix them down in a course. So this week I dropped a course where we mixed a really funky pop song that one of our subscribers wrote the vocals and produced the beat to. Really enjoyed mixing that down in Ableton. The track was called Gone by an artist named Goldfingers from Santiago, Chile. Shout out to Tomas Goldfingers. Thank you so much for being a part of this week's MyMixLab experience for everybody. Because really, I mean, it is a mixing and mastering school, but we think of it as an experience. So enjoy. So speaking of that, Luca's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes on Skype. Someone asked, do you ever use Daws other than Ableton? Yes, every day I use Pro Tools. Every day I use Pro Tools to track vocals. And I've actually recently been using FL Studio to do some tutorials, but not really for my daily work. Let's see. But honestly, my favorite DAW is obviously Ableton. But short answer, yes, I do use other DAWs.
Admit.
Oh,
Should I admit them?
yeah. Let's admit, but then we'll actually go live in. Yeah, we'll actually go live in a few minutes. Thank you. All right. Can you actually give me the white headphones too? That'd be helpful. Just leave them. Just leave them down there. I'll grab them later. Thank you. So let's see. Will it be uploaded later or deleted? So this whole course will actually be uploaded later for viewers of MyMixLab only. So this is actually like a free little preview of what you're going to get at MyMixLab. So enjoy it, because after this, it's getting taken down, uploaded for just subscribers only. So if you have a question, in about 8 minutes, we're going to be going live with Luca Pretolesi. And we got him joining us on Zoom. Let's see. How do you like Ableton Live 11? Favorite new feature? Obviously, the comping feature is my favorite. But if I had to pick a second favorite, I would say that new hybrid reverb. It's really, really handy. The presets menu is actually amazing, which is great because the old Ableton reverb, I felt like the presets all sounded so similar. This is like a deep presets menu. Someone said, keep it up from California. Yes, actually, I just moved out of California, but I always end up back there every single month. So I'll probably see California soon. Let's see. Reid, why are you a puppet? Well, I'm just the realest puppet in the game. Unfortunately, I didn't have a choice. It kind of just chose me. But it turned out great, so I'm pretty happy about it. Hello from Denmark. Hello from Belarus. Wow, we got a lot of people joining us today. And most importantly, in a couple minutes, we got Luca Pretolesi joining us, who's going to be answering all your questions live. And like I was saying, every single week, either me or Luca upload a brand new course to MyMixLab where we break down an entire master chain from scratch. We talk about how a favorite hit song was mixed, like recently On My Mind was nominated for a Grammy, the Diplo and Side Piece track. That was mixed. That was actually the very first course at MyMixLab. And Luca goes through and not only shows you how he mixed all the different groups, but you get presets to download and put on your own tracks as well, which is huge. So I highly recommend you check that out. Everything is on sale for 50% off if you buy courses individually, or if you're looking to subscribe, right now the yearly subscriptions are on sale for only $99. And that's our lowest price ever. So it's a great time to join MyMixLab. There's more courses than ever, and a new one comes up every single week. Someone asked if I've ever been to the Caribbean. No, but I actually should, now that I think about it. Any tips for making good kicks? I would say combine samples that you already love. Figure out what it is that you love about it. Is it the attack? Is it the tail? And extract that and combine it with the attack or tail of another kick, and you might find that you have a new favorite kick just by combining two different parts of two different kicks. When will you post a new video? I'm actually planning a new upload for next week, and I'm not sure if I want to spoil the surprise yet, but it's going to be about mixing vocals, but in a way that I haven't done yet. Reid, how did you become the realest puppet in game? That's a great question, too. I'm pretty sure I was just the first one in the game being a real puppet, and the name just kind of stuck. Next question. Let's see. Oh, we got friends from Italy joining the chat. Amazing. Welcome, welcome. Do you use analog gear for mastering? Have you tried SSL Fusion? I personally don't use analog gear for mastering, but I do send my tracks over to Luca, who does. So I can't say that my sound has nothing to do with analog gear, because there's a very good chance that when he masters my song, it's going through his console in some way, shape, or form. But personally, when I do all my productions, I try and avoid analog gear unless I'm tracking a vocal. That's the only time I turn this gear on, other than when I'm doing live streams with y'all or recording a tutorial. Analog gear is really just my recording equipment, not so much something that I export or mix through. It would make my workflow too challenging. I switch between so many projects in a day. I don't have anybody's help to recall settings on all these knobs and stuff like that. It's just not a feasible workflow for me. I'm sure it would be fun and I'm sure it would sound great. I just personally don't have time for that. Let's see. Brazil says hello. Greetings from Las Vegas. Someone asked, how do I master sub bass? That's a great question. Well, I would focus on making sure that it's mixed well, blended well with your other instruments at a volume that it's not being muffled, or not muffling the other sounds in your mix. I would say it's more about how you balance your bass rather than how you master your bass. But if you're trying to fix low end in a mastering context, a really great tool for that is low end focus. And this is actually a tip I watched Luca do years ago in a seminar in New York City. He was showing how he uses it in mid-side mode and just on the mids. And that makes so much sense. And I got home and I tried it, and it was an example on dance music, but I use that trick on hip hop all the time too. So if you don't have isotope low end focus, you're missing out. Let's see. Did you study music production? I'd say yes on my own, but formally, no. I did have some formal audio production training, but that was more through my television production major. I went to school for communications. The school that I got accepted into had a music department with actually a really good recording major, but I couldn't get in because I didn't play any real instruments, which was unfortunate. So I decided to be a TV and film major. And I learned some audio through there, but honestly, what I was doing through my own personal endeavors was where most learning took place. So, yes and no. We need a mix master session. Over at MyMixLab, we have a bunch of those, where it's a full template for your drums, vocals, synths, and a master chain all in one. We have an Ableton one, a Logic one, and an FL Studio one. And we're working on adding more Daws too. I think Luca has a Studio One template. And yeah, so depending on which DAW you're using, we probably have one coming up for you. Let's see. Does Luca Pretolesi speak Italian? Yes, of course. Italian was Luca's first language. How do you and Cara know each other? We actually both grew up in New Jersey, but we met in California. And a really hilarious story, we actually met on Tinder, which was unexpected, but it was almost expected too, because someone was actually trying to introduce us before we moved. And we found that out after talking to each other. So we met by chance, but there was all these weird connections leading up to it that we kind of just found out about.
You want me to connect you guys?
Oh yeah, it is 2:30, which means we have a very special guest joining us on Zoom.
I'm gonna try and.
Oh yeah, and Cara's gonna switch the OBS over for me.
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I gotta pin you guys, right?
Yep, and then just right click and pin both of us so that our cameras are the same size. Luke, are you able to hear me?
Perfect.
Oh, good. And is everyone in the comments able to hear Luca? And then maybe full screen Zoom too.
And then we're gonna pin. Add.
Yo.
Okay.
There we go. And then
There we
can you
go.
full screen Zoom?
Where are you, Reid?
How are you, Luca? Very good to see you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for
You
coming
know, I
on.
was thinking, Reid.
Go ahead.
First of all, my face is very red because I have weird lighting here today. Let me see. That's okay. Well, look at that. You're so sharp.
Thank
have
you.
Perfect lighting. On
Thank you. I figured out how to get my cinema camera hooked up to OBS, so we're actually movie quality pictures out here.
Amazing, amazing. Actually, now we're talking. I'm gonna do a little correction. Look at that. Look at that. Using technology, amazing. All right. So I'm doing fantastic. Well, the cool thing is we are in on Zoom, but we are like 15 minutes away, 20 minutes away. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's true. Now that we're out here, I'm honestly hanging out at Studio DMI more than ever. And I actually want to
Amazing.
plan a Studio DMI tour video. And
Love it.
I have another like lesson filmed, but I think everyone would just really enjoy getting a tour of the facility, seeing how every room gets used and
It's
what it
awesome.
looks like in a day where you're just there
Yeah.
mixing records and what it looks like in a day where we're here doing my mix lab.
I think it's a great idea. You're welcome to just walk around the room. And today, because COVID started to just fade out a little bit, we are doing like I think 4 days recording on Studio D. But then there's always some action going on at Studio DMI between mixing, mastering, and prepping, and it's a good energy here. So, but Reid, good to see you again. So I think we have a lot of people asking questions. I'm actually see a little bit of the live on YouTube on one screen, and I see us on the other screen.
Yep.
I'm also, you're gonna like this. I'm able to do this. Look at that.
Oh, wow. No way. That's sick.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm also able to do this.
Oh, my goodness. Whoa. What session do you have open?
Working on, actually, I opened again a Zoo song that we did a long time ago. I was listening to that song at a chain that I really liked from that song. So I was open again and export some ideas that he had on that
Amazing.
mix session. So
That's awesome. Yep. And also, huge congratulations on your recent Grammy nomination. I know a lot of
you,
people have seen the course for On My Mind, but if anybody hasn't, it's gives you a look into really one of the most legendary records of the last year. And if anybody had been following the Grammys this year, Luca and Diplo and Side Piece got nominated for On My Mind, and rightfully so. I mean, everyone has heard that song and enjoyed that song in some way, shape, or form this year. So huge congratulations on that. And
Thank
just
you, Reid.
a huge thank you for being open enough to share that sauce with us. I mean, we not only do we get to look at what you did, but we get the presets and the downloads and stuff too. So
You know what is the cool thing is
amazing.
I remember when we started with MyMixLab and we say, hey, let's start this. And I remember say, hey, actually I'm working on a song. I think it's pretty cool. There's a lot of interesting things that'd be nice to share with everyone. And I say, I think the song is going to do pretty good. And then end up to be a Grammy nominated
Oh my
song.
goodness.
So
Yeah,
went well.
pretty good was a tremendous understatement. All right, so I saw a really good question from the comments that I wanted to ask you. When you're
Right.
mastering, how do you choose whether to end your chain with a limiter or a clipper?
Okay. So that's a very good question, and I receive a lot. And I want you guys to think about it this way. What a clipper does versus the limiter. So if you want to get louder, you might want to clip first. In that way, you can reduce peaks, and then you're able to raise the average level up a little bit. When you do that, now limiting will help you to gain extra RMS level. If you do the opposite, you might change the peaks. So you might change the envelope a little bit. Well, this means that you might shave your transient too much. So again, very transparent clipping will push the level, the track up, and then limiting will kind of round a little bit of transient. So I think clipping first and limiter after.
That's awesome. Another question that I saw, someone asked me if I had studied audio and music production formally, like from a university. What's the case with you? Are you someone who just was obsessed with it and wanted to learn everything about it?
Actually, I went to a formal 3 years training when I was very, very young in Milano, Italy, when I was 17, 18, 19. Actually, no, 16, 17, 18. I did a school. It was a traditional recording. Might sound like boring, like understand mic the drums, record the bass, all that phase of recording. But then year number 2, I went into mixing, more mixing. Then it was a moment where it was like just like a change on technology. We went from tape into digital. into sampling. So I was right perfect on time to kind of get my feet wet on both, on the analog culture and the analog domain and the digital. So I did that for 3 years. And then I was not really applying right away, but became like second nature. And then my passion, I mean, I'm extremely passionate about equally mixing and mastering, but the dance music, I felt through the years that mastering was helped me to kind of like give a percentage of improvement regardless if the producer, which is on dance music producer, most likely is also the mixer of the song. I was able to help them. So, and then from mastering to and to stem mastering into mixing. So yes, I did. Back to your question, I had a formal education on that. So I know the theory, I know everything. But I think honestly, through the years, I feel the application will really win. So get well, with today technology, MyMixLab and other platform, you can really get the point and then apply and just put yourself, your sensitivity and your feelings, into mixing.
Absolutely. So much of what I learned came from trial and error, just wanting to know the difference between this and that.
Right.
Like, what does this sound like if you bounce it out like this? So it was
Correct.
a combination of spending time like that, spending time with really experienced people like you, and also spending time in my university learning in a traditional sense. And that's my best recommendation to everybody, because people are constantly asking what the best way to learn is. And I would say find your happy medium between all three of those, because that's going to make you just a really well-rounded audio engineer.
100%.
Another great question that I saw, we've all seen your workflow for setting up a mix as far as like grouping things and coloring things, mix prep, but do you have like a personal workflow before you go to mix? Do you have anything that you do someone said an example, like meditating before you mix, or something that you would do to get your headspace right before you even touch the computer?
I do. And to be honest, what I felt over time, that routine of before studio time and after studio time, it's equally important. I will say the best is how you end your day if you have an early morning session. So to me, the sleeping pattern, be able to work out, kind of burn calories, sorry, and go to sleep and have 7 hours sleep. And just when you wake up in the morning, don't go too crazy on sugar. Don't play loud music. Don't jump on social media on the first hour. Just kind of fade in, it makes sense, into the day. That will work best for me. I feel that also taking breaks on purpose is extremely important. When I have my routine, I know that I'm not going to stay over 1 hour sitting on the same spot with music going. I always find a good reason to stand up, walk, drink water, come back. That has to be, and that will make also my decision a little bit more detached. I feel that I'm more objective on my decision when I'm able to come back and listen. Sometimes I even take notes of myself as a listener. So I'm working 1 hour on the mix, play beginning till end without stop it, and then just like write down notes. Oh, vocal too loud. Okay. Kick too low. So that really helpful.
Another thing that I do is, obviously I always print when I'm finished producing with some sort of master chain. I always have a go-to, but I always come back the next day and focus just on the master chain by itself. I feel like that really just deserves its own day and its own attention, and the fresh ears that you get from getting some sleep in between finishing your mix and then really diving into your master chain. Obviously just throw a quick one on there and bounce it out. That's a great idea always. But get some rest, get some fresh ears before you go back and really pick apart your master chain, because you're going to end up making decisions that you might not think make the song better if you don't have fresh ears. You might, you might have the wrong idea just because you didn't take time away from it.
Yeah, very true.
That's a great option. Let's see. That's another good question. If you had to do a mix in another DAW other than Studio One, what would be your go-to?
Logic, just because I was on Logic for 17 years before Studio One.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I open Logic. I'm so into Studio One now that Open Logic was a little slow. So I would say keep driving the same car if you can. But if you add a DAW for recording that might be different the DAW used for mixing,
Yeah.
that's totally fine too.
Or making
So
beats.
yeah, well, I would say again because of my experience, I would say Logic just because I'm quicker, then I'm faster than. I've never been like a huge fan of Pro Tools myself, so I would say Logic or Studio One.
When you first entered the digital space, you were talking about how you were around for the transition between tape and
Yeah.
digital. What was the first digital, or what was the first DAW that you put hands on?
Oh, that's good. So look, that's how old I am. So first, I was using a Roland M500, which is a sequencer. Then, when the first Logic version one um, came out, that was so basic, so simple, but back then was looked so incredible. So I was one of the early. I think I made a huge investment to buy an actual Mac computer that maybe like 2 MB of RAM.
Yep.
and in the first Logic with colors, there was a big deal to get with colors from a company called Imagic. Then eventually Apple bought Imagic.
Yep.
And then interesting back then, the luxury was to be able to record one audio track, like number one single audio track. So you have MIDI data, and then you have one audio track. So imagine now we are so spoiled. Now you have infinite audio tracks.
Yeah, not only infinite audio tracks, just infinite possibilities with
Everything.
the length of your chains, the chains that you can sidechain into other chains. It really
Crazy.
can become so crazy. Have you ever done something on purpose with just a limited palette of plugins? It's easy to get
Oh yeah.
overwhelmed by all your tools. Have you
Yeah,
ever
no,
have you
Reid,
ever
and no,
stopped yourself?
I do, and actually something that I'm doing, like I think like over time, I like to limit myself a little bit more, to access those go-to plugin all the time to avoid to reinvent my sound every work, every master, every mix. So yes, I do. And I feel that I have my go-to digital plugin, I have my go-to analog emulations, I have my go-to stuff. And I have a big folder with stuff that once in a while I'll just go and pick, but I have my go-to. Yes, I do.
And when you said you're picking between your go-to digital stuff and your go-to analog stuff, is there something that you hear that makes you pick one over the other? When a client sends you a song, do you know that you're going to run this through your desk, or do you know that you could knock this out of the park with a plug-in chain?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. So if I look at this thing, so when I run through this, it's kind of like that's my stereo bus. That's my mastering side. That's the drum processing. But if I treat a mastering that needs the 2-3%, like kind of what I do with your material, I might use the desk for a little bit the tone and the clipping that I'm getting from hardware that might be, I don't want to say superior, but a little bit more forgiving. I'm able to squeeze a little bit more dynamic and have a perceived dynamic range. So I can get louder, retain same dynamic. So I might do an hybrid approach where I know that, okay, I'm going to pull Pro Q3 to do a little bit of mid-side in the box, coming out, do a little bit of dynamic mid-side processing. Then I hit the desk to do a little bit of heavy lifting. So I combine maybe a little bit of EQ and a little bit of limiting. So that's kind of like the approach, but always kind of like I mix in my mind before I execute. So I kind of predict what I'm about to do and I just do it.
That's a really, really great workflow. I love that. And there's a lot of intent that you have before you even start. And I think that's the most important takeaway from that is that you're making actions based off of your thoughts and ideas, like a to-do list in your head. You're not just exploring haphazardly. Like you said, you try and avoid trying new plugins just because it's new or just because you had it or it just came out. So that's a really smart way to approach this. Ooh, I had a good question. Where did it go? Hang on a second. Oh, what audio interface are you using on that desk, and how important is an audio interface to your finished product?
Well, very important for multiple reasons. So I have different options on audio card. So I use dangerous conversion. I use the Convert 8s. I have two of those for summing. So when I sum, I have the drums go on this side. I use a Convert 8. I use a Convert 8 for this side. And I use also a Convert 2 for stereo. So for monitoring the stereo part. Um, so I use dangerous for that. Now I also have a Titan from Prism that I use for capture things. Like I want to just simply capture one single, I want to just process with one single unit and go back into the DAW. I just use the Titan, which sounds fantastic. And that's my way to go in and out. Now, I want to make clear that conversion needs all the little pieces to improve it. So you need quality cable, quality power. So you don't want to use like $3 cable with $3,000 interface. So you need to be careful every single piece. When you go on the analog domain, now everything matters. So I am not a fan of just put our stuff on the analog without a purpose. Stay in the box to be able to recall, to mix faster. If you have the luxury to do what I do for a living, where we have like a team of people and we can justify this type of gear, that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. We were talking about that just before you came on when someone was asking how I use my analog gear. Me and Cara, it's just us out here. You know, when we're opening up different projects, we could open up 5 or 6 different ones in a day, and there would be no way for us to adjust our analog gear to make it sound like it did the last time we bounced it. So it really depends on what you're trying to do, because Lucas and his team are coming, Lucas' whole team, really, they're coming from a perspective where they're finishing songs. They're taking productions that are stemmed out, and a lot of you guys might be making finishing touches to productions that you're still working on. So when you're considering what gear you're going to use or what plugins you're going to use, there's a huge impact in your workflow that you have to consider the long-term and short-term effects of, because you might need to open this song years from now, and you might not have that piece of gear anymore.
Exactly right.
Yeah, there really are two huge advantages and disadvantages to both sides. Here's a great question. I was curious about this too. Could you explain what Sienna is from Acoustica?
Yeah. Sienna, it's a fantastic project. By the way, congratulations to my friends at Acoustica. They did something crazy good. So it's a very similar concept as like SonarWorks reference for, well, there's other software to do kind of like headphone calibration. So you take a pair of headphones, you might have some dip on high frequency, you're missing like 60 hertz, and the calibration fix, essentially make flat. So that's a portion of Sienna. The second portion, which is crazy, is room emulation. So imagine that you can mix on headphones and virtually listen the room from
any type of
speakers.
headphones.
So essentially you get, first of all, you have crossfeed. And then I want to explain a little bit about crossfeed, what a crossfeed is. When we mix in front of the speakers, the left speakers, 30% of the left speakers goes into the right ears. Right speakers, 30% goes to the left ears. We have a crossfeed. On headphones, naturally, we go 100% on the left, 100% on the right. And so we tend, when we mix on headphones, to make things a little bit too center, too mono, because we have a perception of extreme stereo. Using crossfeed, something that Sienna has integrated, you're able to emulate your speakers, hit you a little bit left and right ears. So those are all the things they did well, but the room emulation is fantastic. And by the way, I can't wait to create the Studio DMI room inside of Sienna where you actually can sit in this room.
And listen through your vocals.
It's fantastic. So because COVID, we can arrange the flight here, but they're gonna come at one point to do that.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I actually want someone to sample my bathroom. I love listening to music in my bathroom.
Yeah.
That would be a great listening environment. Let's see. Another question. Do you ever get bored of plugins and just use analog stuff because you feel like you can get more excitement out of it? Or do you feel like you can make an exciting mix either way?
Love the question. So check this. The biggest benefit is two ends at the same time with analog gear. So I'm able to push the top and at the same time compress the drums. So that's a big benefit. So what I was saying is when I go faster and I feel that I don't need anything that is surgical from the plugin, I use analog and then quick I get to the point. So Yeah, I have fun using that. It's almost like, I know it's a crazy example, but you drive a car, you really enjoy driving, and then you take the automatics away, you go manual. It just, you enjoy the process of driving your vehicle. That's the way I feel myself. I just have fun working with analog gear. If you ask me, your music sounds better because analog gear, I don't think necessarily. I think I can get, it's still the driver, right? Still me. So I can get in the box, hybrid, analog, pretty much same result. But because I have fun using analog gear, I might get a better result with analog gear. I hope it makes sense.
Absolutely. Here's another really good question. A lot of people love lo-fi genres of music. When someone sends you a song and lo-fi is the goal, naturally that would be a little bit like the opposite of what you'd be going for, because people are looking for kind of like the most hi-fi experience. But when someone sends you a song and says,
Right.
I want this to hit like a lo-fi banger, do you have any like go-to plugins or pieces of gear that make that sound come to life?
Yeah, guys. So I recommend, if you go for lo-fi, think about like lo-fi. Go back on when lo-fi was normal. It was not lo-fi. It was actually normal mixing. It was stay away from surgical, any peaks on EQ. Go for like shelves EQ, for example. Don't go too wide because lo-fi, it's kind of like more center. So I would say you stay with Pultec EQ, Moog EQ4, maybe a little bit of saturation, something to create harmonics. Go for API EQ, very cool, the 550, 560. Um, Anything that's kind of like a smooth approach. You're not hyping the side. You're not working on the transient. You work more to make everything round. If you go for loud level, stay away for clipping. Maybe go for a little bit of limiting. Use compressor. We slow attack, fast release. The way we let the transit go through. So those like things that kind of like I have in mind if I think about lo-fi approach.
And what's a great piece of analog gear for someone who has no analog gear at all to start with? Whether it's for recording, mixing, like let's assume they have an interface, obviously, but
Right.
they're looking to add the analog sound to
Mm.
their workflow. Do you have a piece of gear or like this kind of compressor or any sort of recommendation that would help someone start off their analog journey?
Well, it's always the things about analog gear. You have it's the budget has to be clear because you can go from, $100 to $100,000. So we need to be clear the budget. But let's say maybe a couple of $1,000. I would say go for one compressor and one EQ. So if you go for, let's say, a classic, you do an SSL compressor. I have a mod SSLG, but if you take an SSLG and a back EQ, you kind of have the two go to as far as like heavy lifting. You have like a good compressor that give you something different than a plugin because it has harmonic content. More you push and more it's just forming and changing. And then you post a compressor, a back EQ that's like a shelf, big shelf at the bottom of the and on the top. You can also do a little bit of filtering, which is the filter on analog domain is a little bit different. So I would say go for an expensive sounding compressor. It's a classic like SSLG, and go for a nice classic EQ, kind of like a back EQ from Dangerous.
Great recommendation. I also started with the Warm Audio products, and I
Right,
was really surprised at how good they sounded. I didn't compare them to the real thing to
right.
say that they were accurate, but I also didn't really know what the real thing sounded like. But I loved what they sounded like. It was really enjoyable to use, and I found
Yeah,
it really hard to mess up,
yeah,
especially with the EQs. They were so forgiving. So that's also a great option to start with.
yeah.
And really there's so many places. Let's say in an example of recording, Luca, would you record a microphone at a studio session at DMI through an analog chain?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what would be your go-tos for setting a mic into the computer?
Well, they're actually recording in this past week, and the chain is fantastic. So we have a reference from Melly reference mic,
Yep.
which is kind of have like the C800, Sony C800 vibe, kind of like expensive, nice top ends, kind of transparent mother, and then put like some tube in the middle. So we have a CL1B, a tube tech CL1B, which is our go-to compressor, especially for recording, because one things I want to be clear about recording through compression. A lot of people they don't maybe think of it in this way. So you think compressor something that you fix vocal after, but then for the singer, be able to hear compression through. It gives you a sense of sustain on the vocal. You feel that you have a little bit of a lifting on some words. You just perform better.
Yeah.
So commit through compression, I think, is really good. Obviously, you don't want to do crazy 20 dB compression. If not, you can undo that. But a little bit of compression. So I would say a 1073 or any type of EQ that's a little bit of tone, but it's not tube. But then you go tube on the compressor and you go back in.
That's really similar to how I'm going. And I love that tip where you said singers actually might have a slightly different performance just because they're going through compression. When you're going with a mic straight into an interface, it can be very spiky. It's very easy to peak as the singer does their higher dynamics in their, louder words. It's very easy to clip, and it might make them hesitant to deliver that part with their full enthusiasm that they would have had if that compressor was there, to give them a little bit of a safety net to avoid clipping if they give it a little bit more extra volume in their vocal performance. So that's really going to get you not only better sounding vocals, but better vocal performances, having a chain there. And sometimes reverb helps for the same reason. Sometimes reverb makes it worse, but a lot of singers especially find reverb to be helpful. A lot of rappers I find prefer to be drier. Sometimes they like tuning, sometimes they don't. So it really is up to you to experiment with your voice, or if you're an engineer, to just ask the singer what their preference is. Many singers already know what their preference is, and if they don't know, you could very easily help them find out. Let's see. Another good question. Should I get a degree in audio engineering to work in the studio? Do you consider that a requirement in people that you consider your assistants, Luca?
Well, we had an internship program here at the studio for a few years, where every couple of years we had interns coming from a school. Is a school in Arizona, which is really good. One thing is I learned over time that it's not really about the degree. It's about maybe the relationship, the networking effect of being a school. The school can reach out to engineer and do an introduction. Yes. But I think ultimate, if I can put like a chart, I put on top of the chart is personality, and be about details in the studio, and be patient and learn over time. The school will give you the tools, but it's up to you to really, at one point, just develop yourself. And another tips that I'm going to give, which is really important, I feel a lot of people get lost on this. Don't rush to pick one single thing and say, I want to become this. Get the music basically tell you what is going to be your path. So learn a little bit about recording, learn a little bit about mixing, learn mastering. That's why I also think MyMixLab is great, because you get a little bit of everything, right? And then understand everything will make you better on what you're going to pick as your own thing. A perfect example, I think a good producer that can speak the mixing language will make him a better producer, right? So a singer that understands music composition will make a better singer. So I believe that every step will help. So don't rush it, just get, absorb, and and I think that's probably the best step to do.
Really, really solid advice. Let's see. Someone asked, is it possible to get good bass in a mix if you don't have a good sounding room?
Headphones. Headphones better than a bad sounding room. Well, headphones, because if you move your head, the music will move with you. If you move your head in a room that's phasing issues, then you might lose 15 dB of 50 hertz. This means that when there's a bass line hitting the 50 hertz, you feel there's no bass. So yes, I say headphones, and I will say on headphones, lower level. If you don't trust your ears when you're pushing too loud, because your ears will, you're gonna have an effect of a speakers that's blowing, that at one point there's no more extension. So you're gonna stretch your ears. So if you're able to learn how to mix a lower level on your headphones, you might have a better result than mix on a bad sounding room, I think.
I love that. Oh, here's another really good one. What's your number one tip for giving notes to an engineer for revisions? Let's say you're an artist you're not maybe good at the vocabulary,
Right.
and you want to explain to your engineer how to get the song to satisfy you. What's the best way to articulate that? Is it references? Is it like trying to get help? What's your suggestion for an artist communicating with an engineer?
It's a great question. I can relate to this question, I mean, daily here. So I think reference tracks, it's a good way to be on the same space. So when you try to explain, say, hey, and my advice in that case is say, look, think about it that you are going to be on a Spotify playlist. The Spotify playlist, it's about style, and you want to have the aesthetic, you want to fit on that playlist. Please bring a couple of songs you are comfortable to play before and after your song, after the song is being mixed and mastered. They give me an idea, which is maybe tone, level of the vocal versus the music. So reference is great for that. That's first step. Second one is start with the main element of the song. So, which is kick, snare, vocal, and the main lead instrument on the entire mix. Just focus on that. And in that case, when I send you the first rough mix, come back with notes just on the main element of the mix. And then let's talk about reverb and delay, all that later. So be able to kind of like have a first set of notes that are based on really the essentials, and then go into the, I don't want to say not essential, but the additional things, colors and space and side, all that. Okay.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where was the next question? I had a really good one picked out. Do you use any stock plugins? I know you probably have all the nicest plugins under the sun, but do you go back to any of your stock plugins just because they work great?
So sorry, I was just trying to read the message. So the question is, if I go back to stock plugin?
Yep. I know you have a huge collection of plugins, but do you use your favorite stock plugins anyways because they're that good? What are they? So
on Studio One, there is a plugin called ProQ, which is some like the FET filter. The ProQ has this like high pass, low pass filter that is so nice, so clean and nice. So I tend to use that, and I like to use the Beat Crusher from Studio One. And I know that every DAW has always that plugin that it's different and better than other plugin that you wish that you can have, outside of the DAW. And I know Cubase always have like the multi-band distortion, and everyone is on his own plugin. But I think for me on Studio One is the Pro EQ, linear phase mode, and the Beat Crusher. They're both great.
I heard something about a plugin in Studio One called Pipeline too. That seems really useful for analog gear. Do you use that?
I forgot to mention Pipeline, man. That's like the top. So Pipeline allow you to get out of the box on the analog domain, come back without any phasing issues. At the point that you can parallel a analog compressor with a plugin, which is fantastic, and also can do automation. I love it. And one thing you can do in Pipeline that's crazy, you can take a photo of the hardware and just put on the interface of the plugin. So when you recall, you can visualize the hardware and recall it. So it's amazing.
It's almost like they knew exactly what we needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love this new question. How do you understand that a mix is complete?
Great question. I mean, you can mix for like weeks and months. You can mix for forever, right? I think the moment that you start to question yourself, what else this song needs, this means you're probably done. Like there's a moment where you feel that you are on this like flow, that you keep going. You work for 3 hours. You feel what's like 15 minutes. You feel really good about it. This mix is going. Then you're done. And then if you start to question, it's like, I don't know what to do. There's something more to do. Most likely you're done. You mentioned something, Reid, which is very important to me. Try, if you can, sleep and then go back the next day. If you master your own mixes, but even if you don't send to your friends, client, label, A&R at the end of the day after 7, 8, 9 hours of working, because you might be tired about things, and then refresh here the next day, you might feel that, oh, wow, the snare is too loud. You know what I mean? So take the opportunity to sleep, come back the next day, and listen as a listener. Just detach yourself.
Brilliant. let's see. Let's see. Is it better to use a plugin that's expensive or a stock plugin? I would say it's better to use whichever one you think achieves the goal. That kind of relates
Exactly.
back to the question I was asking them before. Just because something's expensive doesn't necessarily make it better.
Exactly.
Stock plugins are oftentimes chosen because they seem to be the most unanimously useful tools, and a lot of times that
Yeah.
ends up being true. So
Yeah.
never ever sleep on your stock plugin collection. That's usually where a lot of the best tools are.
Very true. Very
Let's
true. I
see.
mean, it comes down to, in my opinion, what you make the experience for you faster, fun, easier. Then maybe over time you can study and get one plugin that's like the little percent more than the stock plugin. You might switch, but then at the beginning, just get comfortable with the DAW. I mean, today the DAWs Dev is like crazy sounding plugin. It's not like 15 years ago there was issues with phasing and problem. Then now we really, I mean, I got mixes from people that do fully Ableton Live stock plugin.
Oh, they're
It
so
sounds
good.
crazy. So yeah,
I still use stock Ableton Live plugins every day,
yeah,
all day
man.
long. They're so good. Oh, what is your favorite plugin for helping mix a kick and bass together?
Well, I mean, first of all, together means make it live together. Um, Sidechain always win. Right now, I'm doing a lot of like Pro C sidechain with a filter. Hey, can I do something different, Reid? Can I do this? Check it
Yep.
out. Yeah.
Oh,
So I would say if you have the Pro C and you sidechain the Pro C, add a filter. So filter what you don't need. So now you have a double advantage. You get the movement with the sidechain, and you can also get rid of the boominess. There you go.
that's so useful. I'd never even touched that filter down there, and it was hidden
Yeah.
in plain sight this whole time. Thank you so much for. Let's see. And then do you have a special plugin for adding sub bass? Like if the bass synth isn't boomy enough or isn't subby enough, do you have a go-to for generating low-end harmonics?
Yeah. So I used to, the Brainworks, I don't even remember the name now.
Sub
There's a
synth or
Brainworks,
something?
essentially what it is sub-frequency generator. It create second harmonic extremely low. They create that kind of like boominess. I'm always concerned that additional low end, artificial low end that I'm getting, it might create phase issues. And also when I start to do a lot of limiting, a lot of clipping, that part will go a little bit sloppy. So I stay away from that on the lower part. I like to create harmonics on the second octave. When you start to go 100, 200, 300, 400, that part I like to add harmonics. I like to use Saturn too for that. It's pretty cool. There's a video on my MixLab when I go over that, I think, really well. So Saturn's great for that. On the analog domain, I have a lot of options for that. I use literally saturation for hardware gear. I'm literally pushing my DMI EQ to red, and I'm getting crosstalk and saturation in a really good way. So yeah, there's a lot of options for that.
I love that. Let's see. And what are your favorite studio monitors?
Well, I mean, I'm attached to Focal for like many years now. I went from SN9 to the 6 to the 3011 now. So that's kind of like the way it translates better for me, for my ears. But my point is, there is no right or wrong on speakers. That's kind of like your ears, right? So that's the way you comfortable listening. So, and please don't underestimate the room first. If an amazing sound speakers in a bad sounding room will not perform good as an average pair of speakers in a great sounding room. It will make sense.
That's so important. Yeah, and if you don't have access to a good sounding room, like you were saying earlier, headphones
Headphones.
is
Yeah.
just the way to go.
Yeah.
That someone was saying BX Boom might be that.
Yeah. The X Boom. That's what I was talking about. There was a way to create this 40 hertz harmonics. Yep. Correct.
I really like using R bass from Waves for that.
Yeah.
I feel like that
R-Bass.
does a great
Great
job.
example
And
of
there's
that too.
also a cool UAD plugin called Voice of God that I really like.
Yeah.
Do you have some UAD plugins that you use a lot?
I do. I use the LA2A silver when I'm gonna get the LA2A sound, but a little bit of brightness. I like the silver a lot on limiting mode. I like the 1176s, silver, and sometimes even the black on instrument, the silver on vocals. Um, oh, I like Evolution a lot, to kind of like reshape things that are too much transient. For example, I want to shape the attack. I use Evolution. Yeah, I mean, I use the Oxford limiter. Oh,
Yep.
like, of course, you can get the native one, but it's very nice to have a UAD. They're free from, CPU spikes, and it's great.
Yep, I really like their Mog EQ. The
Yeah.
airband on that makes its way into a lot of my mixes. I use Autotune from UAD all the time. I use the
Mhm.
EMT 250 reverb from UAD all the time.
Yeah.
I use their LA2A as well. I really like that one. And there's a couple of really fun little plugins, like a lo-fi plugin called OTO Biscuit. That's really cool.
Yeah. 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 It's cool. It does some crazy,
I
crazy
love
stuff.
that
Yeah.
plugin. Yeah, I have so many cores of UAD plugged into my desk because I use those plugins like a maniac. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really really helpful when they don't juice up your computer. And I actually use the DAW Luna to record every tutorial. It's running in the
Ah,
background because it doesn't
sweet.
use any CPU at all. It's the only second DAW I
Very
could have
true.
open that
Very
that
true.
won't use any
Yeah.
CPU. So it's a perfect second choice if you're recording screen flows while you're producing. So it's really handy tools for more than just plugins. Actually, the whole UAD DAW ecosystem is extremely helpful.
Very true. Very true.
Let's see. Do you have a headphone recommendation, Luca?
Yeah. Let me grab it. Ah. So those. Let me do this. Let me do this. There we go. Those are the Focal Clear Pro. They just put out the new Pro MG. They're even better than those, as far as like low end response. Um, well, they're quite expensive. They're open back. Um, the good things about this, they're kind of similar to the Odyssey LCDX as far as like quality. The advantage of this, you can wear this for the entire day. You're okay. The LCDX, after 30 minutes, you really start to feel the weight on your neck. So I love these headphones. Now, more you go higher as far as like cost headphones, more they need a really powerful headphone amp, which is very important. But there is also a lot of inexpensive headphones. They are fantastic. It's more about learning and understand headphones, and then you go over listening session where you learn your favorite songs and just A and B, and you can really learn to understand your headphones.
I like that a lot. I really like using I think they're Audio Technica ATH M50Xs. I have
Yeah,
them in white, I have them in blue, all the different
yeah,
colors just because I love them so much. But I also
right,
use my Sennheiser headphones sometimes. I have a couple different headphones. I like cycling between them just like you switch between different monitors to check your mix.
right.
I like switching between different headphones to check it out. Let's see. Some people say that when the mix sounds good in the car, it sounds good everywhere. Why don't you just mix in the car, Luca?
I tend to disagree, because I have two cars, and where those vehicles, especially the fancy one, to impress you, they push so much side, so much out of phase that you have a perception certain thing doesn't translate. I mean, I get the point, but with today technology, with nice headphones, I don't see the needs to, trust a car system that it's not really the right purpose, in my opinion.
I love that. I've mixed songs in the car before, but only because if it's an emergency.
Exactly.
Let's see. Do you think it needs to use the SonarWorks or some? Hang on. Do you think it is needs to? Sorry, I don't understand that one. I thought I did, but I did. Let's see. Do you have any microphone recommendations? I know you use the Manly reference, but have you had any good experiences with some of the microphones that are like under $1,000?
Yeah. So yes, I do. So SM7, sure, SM7. If you want more like a classic, I mean, think about it. The SM7 is Michael Jackson Billie Jean. I mean, that's the type of micro that is. Um, well, the Rode mic, it's like pretty cheap and it sounds okay. The good things about the Manly, it's just like the price point for the quality. Obviously, the the super expensive mic that you see on Reid Stefan video right now, I think that's
Oh,
the
this one.
C800, right,
Yeah,
Reid?
that's the Sony C800. Those are
That's
super expensive, but
that costs like a car.
we've had really
But
comparable results from the Sony C100, which just came out recently.
right, that's what I heard too.
We've
Yeah,
had amazing results with that. We've been recently testing the Sennheiser MK4 this week, which is only like $300. We've been getting really great results with that.
nice.
Um, you were saying earlier, both of us agree the TubeTech compressor is just such a solid
Oh,
sounding vocal compressor, and I must
amazing.
admit that it's an absolute cheat code to make any microphone sound good.
Exactly.
There is
Exactly.
definitely a lot to say to
Yeah.
what you're running the microphone through that makes it sound good. And
Yeah.
likewise, when I plug the Sony straight into the interface, it sounds a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
It's not like the beautiful magical experience that you're used to hearing when it goes through all
Yeah.
the gear. So even the most expensive of microphones used in a slightly underwhelming way might kind of throw you off and make you think that it's not that great of a mic when really it's just being used in an odd way.
Also, want to add something about the CL1B, different than a plugin, generate harmonics and push the tube in a certain space based on the level of dynamics. So when a singer just pushes the vocal in a certain way, the compressor will give back a certain tone. So a point is, if you use different microphones in the same compressor, you kind of feel pretty much in the same space. You might have different characteristics, but that's a good investment. Plus, the Tube Tyson 1B, it's like gold. It's going to be a classic for life. You can, for any emergency, you can resell it from 5 years from now and get the money right away, because essentially something that it's like a classic. It's
Yeah,
a
actually,
classic piece.
there was a while last year where Sony and the year before wasn't making any of these mics, and the price was up at like $16,000 or
It's
$20,000
incredible.
from 10.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I should have sold it, but I didn't while the stock was up. But yeah, I use it every day. But honestly, whenever a different mic is up, like I said, I have no problem using that either. I use my
Yeah.
Shure SM7B all the time.
Yeah.
People don't even really
Yeah.
notice that it's not the Sony.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really more about how you're using it and how good you get at mixing it and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
And speaking of how good you get at mixing it, if you guys are looking to learn mixing from myself and Luca Pretolesi, the yearly subscriptions at MyMixLab are on sale right now for only $100 a year. So that is the lowest price there ever has been and will be. So take advantage of the spring sale now. You do not want to miss out. Monthly subscriptions are only $12, and if you don't want to subscribe, we now have the option to purchase courses individually in the MyMixLab shop, and everything in the shop is 50% off right now. So no matter which course you want at MyMixLab, you could go get On My Mind, mixing the Grammy-nominated track this year, or go get my most recent Ableton 11 vocal template. Today we just dropped Fix My Mix, where every month either Luca and I take a song from a subscriber, open up their session in our course, and literally fix their mix for everybody, share the presets, and share the finished song. So today, actually, this morning, I just released this week's course. We upload a new one every Monday. So if you're not already subscribed at MyMixLab, I highly recommend you check it out. It's an online mixing and mastering school, but we really think of it more as an experience. We try and provide you guys not just something to help you, but something to inspire you.
Reid, I want to add something about MyMixLab.
Please do.
I mean, the community that it's what's happening with MyMixLab between everyone involved is so crazy, so cool. I was noticed because now people just chatted with me on Instagram and say, hey, when you talk about that little trick on MyMixLab, I try on my song and check it out. So it came out something really, really cool. Another things that I think it's pretty crazy, that if you are looking specifically on MyMixLab, you go back, you kind of have like a piece of everything that you can take from every different courses and build your workflow. It doesn't mean that you're gonna copy the techniques. This means that you can take as an input, say, oh yeah, so I might need to do something on the snare. Let me go back and check that video. So you can almost take it as a template, but personalize it, make it your own. And the fact that you can get also actual presets, I think that's a great bonus.
And for example, if you watch the Waves mastering template course and you don't have any Waves plugins, I promise you're still going to learn something. And I promise you're going to have plugins in your stock collection that are going to be just like that, and you're going to be able to follow along. So it's not really about what DAW we're using or what specific brand
No.
plugin we choose to use. It's always going to be techniques that you can apply to anything. So that being said, I think we're just going to take 2 or 3 more questions and then wrap it up. You guys have really been on the ball, not just the community at MyMixLab, but the community here on YouTube has been on fire today with the questions. I see another really good one. Do you have a target LUFS? I know personally I do, and this is going to be a little bit confusing, but I try and be louder than -14. So anything like -9, -10 is more where I aim. I just make sure that I still have some nice dynamic to my mix. And then when I upload it to Spotify and it plays back at -14, all good money. So that's my answer. Luca, do you have a target LUFS when you mix?
Yeah, I think I'm still thinking on peak RMS level, and then I stay around -10, -9. But sometimes, especially tech house, that the kick and bass has a certain limiting that it's really affecting the result of the track. If I get too dynamic, I might lose that groove that I want. So it's not only the purpose of be standard for Spotify or any other streaming device. It's just more to make sure that I retain the intention of the master. So I'm not really into the -14. I just don't feel it for one reason. What about if 2 years from now the new standard is -10? Now what's going to happen? We're going to leave music on the stereo music that is too quiet, just because. So if a track is proper mastered, you can lower. That's okay. You're not going to lose anything. So I feel that sitting the -9, -10 works, but then mostly just follow my instinct without destroying the songs. I can use some tricks to gain some RMS level or UFS and retain dynamics. So I'm not really worried. I think it's overrated. I think the story about the -14 doesn't apply, in my opinion.
And there's also been a lot of applications where you definitely don't want to be anywhere near -14. For example, if you're DJing and you're playing MP3s in a DJ set, if you drop one of those quiet MP3s, something is going to feel wrong. Another situation where I always have to deliver mixes as loud as possible is if it's for a television placement or something for a commercial where they're going to be editing it into a video. They always want that to be blasting as loud as possible. So there's a lot of situations where I'm actually going up even louder than -9. But I would say if I had to pick an average of where I mix and bounce my masters at, -9 or -10, and then let Spotify or whatever platform turn it down to whatever volume it prefers. Like Lucas said, who knows what volume it's going to prefer next year?
You don't know. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Do you have any recommendation to learn the sound of your studio monitors?
Yes, I do. The first input is this. Even if you have a really good sounding room with a good acoustic, start using your speakers extremely low level. Try to minimize the reflection. Everything that you're listening, it's also the result what is coming back from the wall, from the ceiling, from the floor.
Yeah.
So if you reduce that, you maybe put the speakers a little bit closer to you, you start to learn your speakers. Then the moment you learn speakers, you can push a little bit louder and get the room sound. But initially, trust your speakers at lower level, not too loud.
I love that. Someone said L7 LUFS mix is good. Yeah, you're going to find that your mix could sound good at any level. Just because Spotify has a little rule does not mean that all music has to follow that rule. And also, there's a way in your Spotify preferences to go and turn off that. If you don't want to listen to music through that volume normalization, there's an advanced setting somewhere that you could go and turn that off. And I'm sure a lot of people do too. So you're also not stuck listening like that.
Also, Reid, I want to give a tip of my loudest master this year. There are 2 songs. One is a song from Carnage. It's called KTM.
Yep.
That song, it's just, there is a point that, I don't know. I don't want to look the RMS level. It's ridiculous, but retain a little bit of movement.
Right.
And otherwise on my mind. Both, they're extremely loud. But both songs, for the type of songs, works. Obviously, if it was like a pop, like 70 BPM down-tempo songs, doesn't make any sense. But for that type of track, like you mentioned, most likely it's going to be a big impact play on a festival in a club. has to sound that way. So it's just more not to get louder, but to get a certain thickness and a certain like kick and snare relationship when it's that loud.
I love that. Oh, here's a good one. If you had to mix a whole song with one brand's plugins, is there any brand that would help you do it top to bottom? Like you could complete a whole mix with just their plugins.
Check it out.
I love that.
No, just
How
joking.
did I know?
No, I was saying, honestly, I believe with Fat Filter Pro Q3, you can do a lot.
Yep.
You can do a lot because you can do mid-side, you can do dynamics, you can do EQ, you can do a lot. So I was saying, for me, analog, emulation, Diamond Color Q3 with Acoustica, digital Pro Q3. With those two, I can do a lot, seriously.
Yeah, I would say if I had to pick a couple plugins, I would definitely put FabFilter Pro Q3 on there. I would probably use the Ableton OCC, and then I'd have to pick a limiter or clipper, so I guess I'd choose standard clip.
Right.
And maybe like a transient designer plugin, and I would be good for most of my mixing applications. But you could even use FabFilter to do some transient enhancement. I see you do that all the time, the way you flip it into an expander.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you'll actually find as you limit yourself to a couple plugins how useful and how many different things that there actually are to do with one plugin.
Correct. Exactly right.
Do you ever find yourself using a plugin the wrong way on purpose because it does something you like?
Oh yeah. I use a combination. I think it's on my MyMixLab as well. When I'm using the Ozone 9 exciter in the Ozone 9 imager to essentially create harmonics on the side, on the exciter, a push into the imager to kind of like distort a little bit the side sometimes when I have like thick lower mid range. So I do, yeah, which is not what you're supposed to, but works.
I love that. Yeah, I love putting the Waves Axe. That's supposed to be a guitar compressor, but I love putting that
I like
on,
that.
on
It's
vocals
so aggressive.
and ad-libs. Yeah, it is so aggressive. I really, really like using that. I think there's something cool about those Waves plugins that they have just one or two knobs, and they're doing compression, but they're also sneaking something else in there. I really love that, and you just get to push it as far as you want. Let's see. Louder mixes sound better. Technically speaking, a lot of people might agree just because louder tricks people into thinking something's better, but you might actually make your mix sounding worse, make it sound worse, and you think it's better just because it's louder. So it's a double-edged sword. All right, and then we'll do one final question. Actually, this is a perfect final last question. What's your favorite final plugin, your final mastering limiter?
Oh, I mean, I have a combination of two. So the combination of two are one clipper and one limiter. So I'm talking, I'm opening, I'm bringing this on my session so I can show those. So one is standard clip, which is this one. So standard clip, it's like my go-to linear phase clipper that allow me to raise my RMS level a lot. And then followed by this guy, which is lift. I have the best of both worlds now. Now I have a 3 type of limiting. I have a little bit of harmonics if I want. And I have on top of that, my hard clipping, which is my go-to. I like to work hard clipping, offline, always 32 times. And I like to use linear phase mode. And that's pretty much what it is. So that's clipper and that's limiter.
A lot of times when I'm looking for an all-in-one, I use the T-Rax plugin called One. That's my really quick, like I'm trying to do this as fast as possible and just make a bounce master chain. But if I'm going to open it up and tweak out, there's something great about Ozone 9 and all those options that it has. And sometimes I use Ozone 9 just all in one, or sometimes I use the individual plugins and do something custom with that. But standard clip too, it's really hard to pick, but I guess Ozone and T-Rax 1 would be my 2 picks if I had to choose.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Luca, thank you so much for coming on our YouTube channel and answering all of our questions. It's
Love
just
it.
such a blessing to be able to learn from you week after week over at MyMixLab. And if any of you guys are looking for just the best mixing and mastering school, courses from me every week, courses from Luca every week. We also have friends that do guest tutorials. Like I said, the yearly subscriptions are on sale right now for only $99. And that is the lowest price we have ever had. So go get a huge deal on a weekly course from us with preset downloads, and also a rerun of this live stream is going to be available to My MixLab subscribers. So if you missed the beginning of this or you want to just go back and rewatch it, all the subscribers at My MixLab will be able to watch this. I'm going to put this up on the website today or tomorrow for everybody. Actually, let's do it tomorrow because I just put one up today. We'll give people something to watch tomorrow too. So thank you so much for participating, Luca. Everybody who answered and asked questions, we appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you guys next time in another live stream. Hey,
See you guys.
thank
Bye.
you, Luca. You just hit end stream on OBS.
Yes.
Thank you. This is my ghost producer.